Welcome back to Carneades.org. Today we are going to be finishing up our series, 7 Secular Advocacy Organizations for Skeptics to Support. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a controversial topic. What is Satanism? Now, Satanism refers to many different theistic and non-theistic religious traditions that are often conflated and misunderstood and share little beyond a general family resemblance. This is compounded by many of these traditions claiming to be the one true Satanism. The only one of these organizations that really fits into the title of this series, essentially a secular advocacy organization that skeptics should support, is the Satanic Temple. That's not to say that they are the right Satanists, but rather that their mission is focused on secular advocacy in a way that other organizations that take this title really are not. However, to help disambiguate, we will cover the range of views that are identified with Satanism, starting with the theistic and extremist, craziest Satanism you can imagine, and making our way back towards the skeptical, humanistic, and secular versions of Satanism that exist. Now, a key distinction to make when it comes to Satanism is the accusation versus self-identification. Throughout history, groups have been accused of particularly immoral acts in order to dehumanize and exclude them. Early Christians were accused by the Romans of ritual sacrifice of children and of using blood for rituals. Christians then turned this same accusation on pagans, calling it Satanism, arguing that any gods that were being worshipped were just Satan in disguise. This accusation of Satanism was then turned on other Christians of different denominations who didn't quite agree with the Christians that were accusing them of being Satanists, as well as Jewish people, Muslims, and other non-Christians. These satanic panics show up frequently throughout history as a tool to dismiss and dehumanize others whenever Christians fear that they are losing cultural power in society. In this video, we're not going to be focusing on groups that were accused of being Satanists, but rather groups that self-identify as Satanists. And it's important to note, despite what you may hear on the news, none of these groups, even the most extreme, condone any kind of child sacrifice. That only comes out when you see these accusations of pick a group you don't like, call them Satanists, and accuse them of child sacrifice. So, before digging into the specific types of Satanism, it's useful to understand a bit of the history of how Satan became a heroic instead of a malicious figure in the popular ideology. This story can be traced back to John Milton's epic poem Paradise Lost, which portrays Satan's rebellion against God, claiming famously that it is better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. There have been many interpretations of this poem, but some cast Satan as a sympathetic figure, as an analogy for dissenting voices in society pushing against the power of the state or the church. Those voices are then branded as evil, not for any evil acts that they have done, but simply for questioning those in power, a story that certainly parallels the story of Satan. To these people, Satan is not a real being, but a symbol of rebellion against tyranny, and a symbol for those who question how those who question the system are portrayed as being evil, not because they are actually doing any evil acts, but rather because they are simply questioning the existing hierarchies. This also fits in with other components of Paradise Lost, as tyrants often try to limit the knowledge and information to provide to their subjects, just as God forbid Adam and Eve from eating from the tree of knowledge, while Satan tempted them to try to learn things. Much of this can be seen as the changing values of society, moving from a hierarchical medieval set of values of obedience and toil that would cast a rebel as an antagonist, as a villain, to the Renaissance values of discovery, knowledge, and debate, where the existing structures are the enemy. The stories we tell were changing, or rather, the moral coding of those stories was changing. When we tell a story about someone rebelling against an existing hierarchy in the medieval ages, that person that's rebelling is seen as a negative person, a bad person towards order and hierarchy and all these things. But we get to the point of the Renaissance, and there are a lot more people that are rebelling against. We see that a lot of these existing hierarchies are actually pretty corrupt, and maybe there's good reasons to rebel against them. And so Satan somehow changes from a villain in a world where blind obedience is paramount to a hero in a world where the existing power structures are being shown to be the things that are immoral. So, different types of Satanism exist on a spectrum, with some being more materialistic, humanistic, and atheistic, while others are more occult, spiritual, and frankly violent. The key dividing line between these types is between those that are atheistic, who view Satan as an inspirational literary figure, and those that are theistic, worshiping a literal Satan. So views on this side say Satan exists and should be worshipped. Views on this side say no, Satan does not exist, but is an interesting literary figure. On the far end of the spectrum, the Order of the Nine Angles is a militant, violent, occultist, neo-Nazi version of Satanism that encourages anarchy and violent disruption of Western society. Moving a little closer to the middle, we have organizations like the Temple of Set, which is a break-off of the Church of Satan, whose founder of the Temple of Set claimed that Satan revealed himself to him as Set, the Egyptian god. Shifting over to the atheistic type of Satanism, we have the Church of Satan. This is an atheistic but occultist group that advocates for individualism and indulgence. And finally, at the far left end here, we have the Satanic Temple, which is a non-theistic, materialistic, non-supernaturalist religion that advocates for secularism in society. We're going to go over all of these organizations in a little more depth. There are other groups that call themselves Satanists. This is not a complete picture. Rather, it is a bit of a sampling of some different groups from all ends and all parts of this spectrum that exist. So, we'll start with the Order of the Nine Angles. If you've heard about Satanists doing real harm in the world, causing anarchy or violence, supporting neo-Nazi ideologies, there's a good chance you're thinking of the Order of the Nine Angles or a similar organization. Just as many Nazis identify as Christians, some Satanists identify as Nazis as well. The Order of the Nine Angles encourages members to join police and military units in order to enact legal violence, actively encouraging human sacrifice and legal human sacrifice through joining the police or the military to kill people. Though only of the guilty and never of children. They want to destabilize the existing Western world in order to bring about an imperial, militaristic, Aryan dictatorship that they think will conquer the galaxy. The organization is branded as a terrorist organization by most governments. It has at most a few thousand members, though exact totals are difficult to come by. The Order of the Nine Angels denounces other forms of Satanism as not true Satanism. It goes to the point of advocating killing members of those organizations, claiming that they are guilty themselves. Followers believe in so-called left-hand path or black magic. Moving slightly closer to the middle, we have the Temple of Set. The Temple of Set broke away from the Church of Satan, which it deemed as too rationalistic and atheistic. The founder of the Temple of Set, Michael Aquino, was a high-ranking member of the Church of Satan, but claimed to have been visited by Satan himself, who revealed to Aquino that Satan was actually the Egyptian god Set and the only real god in existence. The Temple of Set has some basis in the Lema beliefs of Aleister Crowley and other roots in the claims of the Church of Satan. Followers also believe in the use of the left-hand path or black magic. It is the most theistic of the versions of Satanism to a certain degree, believing in a real Satan or Set, and they dismiss other versions of Satanism as not truly following Satan or Set himself, and claim that they are the true heirs to the tradition of the Church of Satan, which they think has gone too far in the atheistic direction. Some sources say that membership in this movement was limited to a few hundred or up to 1,000 people, though exact numbers may not be accurate. For example, their Facebook page has maybe a few thousand followers. Next up, shifting over to the atheistic side of the divide, we have the Church of Satan. Arguably, the original Satanists, or at least self-identified Satanists, were the Church of Satan, founded in the 1960s by Anton LaVey. The Church of Satan is explicitly atheistic, but does believe in black magic. Proponents of the Church of Satan do not believe in a literal Satan, but rather claim he's a literary figure that represents their views. They are generally centered around embracing individualism and indulgence. They argue we should embrace the inversion of Christianity. The Church of Satan advocates for worshiping yourself as a god, embracing the 7 deadly sins, and proposes that the true sins are instead stupidity, pretentiousness, solipsism, self-deceit, conformity, lack of perspective, forgetfulness of past orthodoxies, counterintuitive pride, and lack of aesthetics. Their ethics has a strong basis in Ayn Rand's objectivist ethics. LaVey himself described the church as Ayn Rand's philosophy with some ritual added on top. The group does not publish any numbers of adherents, but it has over 300,000 followers on Twitter and nearly 300,000 followers on Facebook, just to give you a sense of range between this organization versus the other two organizations we've talked about before. Other than the high satanic mass that was held on 666, the church has been less active recently, and many groups have splintered off from it. Many of the congregants denounce the Temple of Set and the Order of the Nine Angels as demon worshippers, not true Satanists, while claiming that the Satanic Temple is not actually a religion, but simply a political movement. Now, last but not least, we have the Satanic Temple. The Satanic Temple is the most recent of the groups, having formed in just 2013. It is officially a religion recognized by the IRS, but they don't believe in any supernatural or superstitious claims. Their central tenets are focused around empathy to all, pursuit of justice, bodily autonomy, personal freedom, belief in science and reason, acceptance of your own fallibility, and noble thought and action. They're distinct from other forms of Satanism. And while they dismiss the Church of Satan as outdated, they do not assert that they are the one true Satanism as the other denominations in some way do. If LaVey's Church of Satan was a rejection of the classical Christian values around the virtues and the sins, the Satanic Temple is more a rejection of the values of the religious right, particularly in the United States, and their tenets are basic enough that many people probably already accept them, even if they don't identify as Satanists. In practice, the Satanic Temple does a lot of legal advocacy for their members and for other non-theistic people as well. Often in the U.S., Christian organizations will be given certain privileges by the government because they're the only organizations that ask to do so, such as placing Christian monuments on public property or requiring Christian prayers at government meetings. To combat this, the Satanic Temple will often make a similar request for their monument or prayer to be included as well, and for the government to remain impartial, they need to accept both or neither. This, as a matter of practice, often leads to Christian nationalist politicians dropping their attempts to foist Christianity on the public out of fear that they would be required to condone Satanism as well. These include things like requesting a statue of Baphomet next to the Ten Commandments statue at a public building, reading Satanist prayers during a school board meeting, or providing after-school Satan clubs for kids as a counterpoint to Christian attempts to indoctrinate kids in school. The possibility that a school might be required to allow such a club often leads to the government withdrawing support for the Christian club and therefore keeping the school secular. Abortion rights are also a key part of the Satanic Temple. They claim to have an abortion ritual that, according to the TST, in states which have passed laws that protect religious freedom, allows TST members to receive abortions without needing to go through unscientific regulations, often required by conservative states, those same states that pass those religious freedom laws. Some have accused the Satanic Temple of being a troll organization, which with drives such as raising money for the Samuel Alito's Mom abortion clinic. They also have non-theistic programs to help members with addiction, as well as charity drives and more. The number of members in the TST is also unclear, but similarly to the Church of Satan, their Facebook page has nearly 300,000 followers, and their Twitter page has around 150,000 followers. Now, there are many reasons that one might object to Satanism. For an organization like the Order of the Nine Angles, the explicitly racist ideology runs afoul of most moral compasses. There are a lot of views on morality. Most of them will say that racist violence is probably a problem. This, coupled with the strange cosmology, makes and how would you prove that there's going to be a great and bountiful Aryan human empire that's going to span the cosmos, makes such a viewpoint really hard to defend philosophically. The Temple of Set has most of the problems that any religion or cult does. Simply because someone claims to have some text that was revealed to them by a god doesn't mean that it's true. The Church of Satan is an interesting one. Philosophically, a full examination of Ayn Rand's viewpoints is going to need to await another video, but one could bring any challenges that one had to kind of objectivism, particularly objectivist morals, to most of the claims that the Church of Satan is bringing about the way they look at morality. Many have championed the idea of altruism actually being a good thing over individualism as a source of morality, as kind of an initial point against that, but the complications of objectivism, like I said, deserve their own video. The Satanic Temple's viewpoints are really very similar to those of humanism, secularism, and scientific realism, the issues of which we have discussed in other videos. Some within the community of nonprofits that support these kinds of actions have supported the Satanic Temple and their work, while others say that as a kind of troll organization, they sometimes cause more problems than they solve. Now, it should be clear that Satanism can mean many things, and if you ever hear someone say that they're a Satanist, your first question should really be, which kind of Satanist? Since the different groups that use this title have such varied beliefs and so little in common. While a few are neo-Nazis, the vast majority are atheists and agnostics attempting to push for a non-religious lifestyle in countries dominated by Christian politicians. Unlike what you may have heard, Satanists are not baby killers. Even the most extreme who identify as Satanists, such as the Order of the Nine Angles, denounce such practices. The Satanic Temple functions much like the many nonprofits we've reviewed in this series, working to advocate for a secular society in, admittedly, its own way, in part by exposing the hypocrisy of Christians that want the government to give preferential treatment to their religion at the exclusion of others, by showing that if we were to give equal treatment to all religions, it would include allowing Satanists in, which the Christians really don't want to let happen. If you support a secular government and you like the kind of tactics of the Satanic Temple, you should consider donating to them. Or, if you prefer a more traditional method of legal advocacy for secularism, consider supporting the Freedom from Religion Foundation as part of our fundraiser for them featured alongside this video. Please do it soon. The fundraiser will be ending in a week or two, so please donate if you have the money, if you have the time, if you care about issues like secularism in government. Do consider donating. What do you think of Satanism? Are any of these belief systems interesting or persuasive? Is TST truly a religion despite not believing in the supernatural? Is their legal advocacy work an effective way to advance their cause, or does it cause more problems than it solves? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Watch this video and more here at Carneades.org, and stay skeptical, everybody.